things that we've discussed plenty on this show is the idea that Bitcoin is far, far more important to the other 6 billion. Those who are underbanked, unbanked, living in oppressive regimes, living in countries with hyperinflation, living in countries where burning your money is not as good as, is better than spending it, but not as good as burning goat shit. And in those particular countries, Bitcoin is not just a fad. It's not just a new technology. It's potentially a lifesaver. It's an exit. Nowhere is this more true today than the country of Argentina, where the Latin America Bitcoin Conference is going to begin next weekend. I will be going there, as well as a number of other Bitcoin people. It's going to be a rather important show. And just in time, the Argentinian government decided to throw yet another log on the fire of Bitcoin and on the devaluation and inflationary destruction of the Argentinian currency. If you've been paying attention there, they've suffered from hyperinflation for years, and the government has responded to this by turning the screws on currency controls and trying to keep a panicked population locked in on a sinking ship of currency. The latest news is that they've imposed a foreign currency credit card transaction surcharge. Basically, they apply a tax of 20% already on any transactions where an Argentinian credit card is used to purchase something outside of Argentina, because credit cards were one of the few remaining ways to essentially exit the Argentinian money into US dollars or other currencies. As of this week, they've raised that from 20% to 35%. Again, woo! Punishing rates, and really an indication of outright panic by the Argentinian government. They're doing this at a time when there is another option, and that option is Bitcoin. I'm very excited to be visiting Argentina because I think it might be not the first state to adopt Bitcoin, but the first state whose population adopts Bitcoin while the government stays stuck on a currency that nobody wants to use. They're already talking about splitting the currency into a foreign version and a domestic version, similar to what happens in Cuba, where there is one version of the currency for tourists, which is much stronger, and you can get essentially much better returns. And then there's another version of the currency for internal use, which is much, much weaker. And so they're proposing doing that with their Argentinian money. But before they actually have a chance to do that, a big chunk of the population is already using Bitcoin for exactly that purpose. And that adoption may accelerate. And keep in mind, Argentina has electricity, they have internet, they have a literate and technologically savvy population. They have all of the prerequisites and preconditions to hit that tipping point and do a mass evacuation of currency. The only thing that's stopping them is these broken currency controls that simply can't stand in the way of Bitcoin. So is Argentina going to be the next tipping point?
It seems obvious that it is. And you're right, Andreas, this is just panic on the part of the government, and people aren't dumb. They can see it. So if there's a better option for them, they're going to take that. Now, the question is, will the Argentinian government try to make it illegal to buy Bitcoin somehow or to use Bitcoin?
Invariably, yes, is the answer to that. I mean, it's not like it's not like this is the first time we're seeing this movie, right? I mean, like, this has all happened before in Argentina by itself, but in South America and in parts of Africa, this is a fairly common way that things go. I think the better question is, can Bitcoin help to break this cycle? Because the only way that you can get away with doing things like this is if there is no other option. So now if Bitcoin is an option and it's available to everybody, regardless of what your local government wants you to do, does that mean local governments can no longer pull off maneuvers like this?
I hope so. I mean, that would really go a long way toward making the world better for ordinary people.
We're going to find out soon enough, because even if they try to ban Bitcoin, this is an environment where the rule of law is weak, as it is in most countries where you have these kind of extreme measures. And what that means is that there's just enough corruption within the political class that even if something like that is illegal, the people with money can bribe people to turn a blind eye to their use of Bitcoin. And what that will do is it will create the conditions necessary for capital flight into Bitcoin. And when capital flight does not involve a flight, when it doesn't involve a suitcase full of money money crossing the border when it involves simply the installation of an application. No, the balance of power between people and currency and between people and nation states has shifted forever in the favor of people.
But is it really that easy? Like, if you live in Argentina, how do you buy Bitcoins?
That's the beautiful part about it, which is that what you need there is a compensating flow that balances things out. And that compensating flow is essentially remittances. So what you do is you balance remittances coming in from people outside Argentina who are sending money home. And instead of sending US dollars and converting it into Argentinian pesos, they'll send Bitcoin. And then you need local people willing to buy Bitcoin. So you balance remittances from abroad with capital flight from inside the country. And the nice thing is you need to balance it perhaps on 1,000 to 1 ratio. One rich person within doing flight against 1,000 migrants sending money home. And immediately you have a well-balanced flow. I don't think it will be difficult to find buyers within Argentina. And I don't think it will be difficult to find Bitcoin sellers within Argentina if you kick in the remittances flow.
But I mean, the free market really does solve this problem pretty elegantly, right? I mean, there are few exchanges operating in South America right now. And there are multiple countries that have currency controls in South America. And so what you'll see is that if you find these national exchanges, they tend to have very, very high fees. And they also tend to do kind of small volume, but the volume over time is growing. So those companies being out there are like beacons to other companies that say, man, they're making 15% on their transaction fees. That's crazy. We can do that for 10% and make a huge profit. So, I mean, again, like, this problem does solve itself over time. The question is, are we allowed to solve the problem, or are the solutions de facto black market solutions because it's illegal to trade in the currency?
When the currency is in this condition, the only market is the black market. And that's the important thing to realize. That what to us seems alien and extreme and only under the worst possible circumstances and frowned upon by law in many other countries is the norm. The black market is much more powerful in countries like Argentina. So think about people who have already moved their money outside of Argentina, yet still need to, I don't know, buy apartments, buy cars, live in Argentina, spend money in Argentina, mostly rich people. But hey, they've already done the hard work of airlifting their currency out, and they can use Bitcoin to bring it back in. I was reading a while ago that some people were buying stock on the Argentinian stock market with pesos that is also listed on the New York Stock Exchange, and then selling the stock in New York for dollars, and essentially using the stock market to do currency arbitrage and move money out of the country. So any single avenue, any door left open is so attractive to people trapped in a sinking currency that they will go to extreme lengths and measures in order to exit the sinking currency. And they'll be willing to deal with uncertainty, with risk, with exchange rate risk, with legal risk, with bribing, with whatever they need to do to save whatever value they have in their meager savings. People are willing to do a lot more work to adopt Bitcoin in a country like that than they are to adopt Bitcoin in a country like the US. And I think that's the main lesson of Bitcoin. It's all about the other 6 billion.
You know, I just looked on localbitcoins.es, which is the Spanish local Bitcoins, Spanish language version. And I looked at the comprar Bitcoins in Argentina. And in Buenos Aires, there's several listings, for local sale, both for Argentinian pesos and for US dollars. So it looks like this is already starting. And what are we going to see happening next? I don't know, because, well, actually, this is pretty good. So somebody is selling Bitcoins for $9.95 US dollars, which is below market rate. That's like BTCE rates right now, currently. And, somebody's selling for 1,113 US dollars. And some of these people have a lot of feedback. So it looks like they've been getting some sales.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be a rapidly growing market over the next couple of months, and specifically, the next couple of years. I just talked with a guy who started up a podcast in Portuguese, and I believe it's the first Bitcoin podcast in the Portuguese language. And so again, I think that really just all of the non-English language areas are a little bit behind the Western world in terms of where we are thinking about Bitcoin, but they're not far behind, and they're catching up really fast.
And the motivation are clearly aligned in a much stronger way than they are here. And so I predict that 2014 will be the year of Bitcoin in the periphery, if you like. It's not going to be in the developed world. It's going to be playing out massively as a tsunami of capital flight in the developing world. And that's where we're going to see most action in Bitcoin. The center of gravity has shifted. The hotspots are going to be Middle East, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. That's really exciting, I think, for Bitcoin. It opens a whole new level of possibility. Even for those of us who are here in the US, it means great things, as we've seen with the price increase because of China.
Hi, this is Jason King for Bitcoin 100, and you're listening to Let's Talk Bitcoin. But you know, Bitcoin is not really a talker. It's a doer, just like the best nonprofits and charity organizations. And at Bitcoin100.org, all we do is find hardworking nonprofits and charities and give them $1,000 in Bitcoin. That's all we do. So donate to Bitcoin 100 and let Bitcoin, nonprofits, and charities do what they do best.